IAEM Weekly starting right now, bringing emergency managers from around the world together to learn, share and collaborate.
Hey, welcome to the IAEM Weekly Show, and I'm your host, Todd DeVoe, and
Daniel Scott. Good morning.
So today, it's awesome. I am bringing on a friend of mine who is running for the IAEM second vice president position, and I'm endorsing him 100%, and because I know him well, and I think he'd do a great job in the position. And Brian Scott is an accomplished executive in government, private, nonprofit sectors. He has extensive experience in emergency management, crisis, and school safety. He is really involved in things in Nevada, really trying to make emergency management even better there. And he responded to the shooting there in Vegas, the Vegas shooting. How many years ago? It was a couple years ago now. And he's done so much work with that and working with the victims as well. So he was the 2015 finalist for the Governor's Point of Light Award, and he was a 2018 IAEM National Emergency Manager Volunteer of the Year. And he's done a lot of volunteer work as well. And I think it's awesome. So Brian, welcome to IAEM Weekly.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you, Todd, and Daniel. Good to see you both.
Good morning, Brian.
So Brian, why are you running?
Well, you mentioned my background a little bit. I come at emergency management from kind of two angles. I work professionally for the state of Nevada in charter school education. We have 67 campuses and about 50,000 kids. So I help develop emergency operations plans, develop the charter school safety committee. So we try to get them good information to develop plans and make campuses safe. But also, like you said, from the volunteer point, a number of years ago, I got assigned actually through my church to be the emergency manager in the state of Nevada, and I cover parts of California and Arizona as well. And then I became, if you're familiar, I know you guys are, but most of your listeners would be familiar with COADs or VOADs, but I became the chair of the Southern Nevada VOAD, which is Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, became the chair of Southern Nevada. And then the morning after the October shooting, I was called by the Clark County Fire Department, City of Las Vegas, to come in and oversee spiritual emotional care and then donations management, volunteer management for the Family Assistance Center. So I think my background is good. I love to serve. Again, I've served in a lot of volunteer areas, and I just saw this as another unique opportunity on how to elevate the profession of emergency management and also be a national spokesperson. I mean, I have connections at FEMA. I have connections on the state and local levels, and we're going through at least an economic recession or turn down right now. Maybe hopefully it's just minimal or temporary, but we need people to stand up for the emergency management field. A lot of people feel that emergency management is sometimes an afterthought, and we need to make sure that it's not, because it's vitally important to our communities.
Absolutely.
So if you get, I'm hearing some feedback. I'm sorry. So if you get elected, how do you expect that you'll be able to? What do you expect to be able to bring to the organization to aid in the advancement of emergency management?
Well, I think, again, the leadership component comes in. As Todd mentioned, I have been executive director of a couple of state agencies. I've worked with police and fire in both of those capacities, and emergency managers. Like I said, I'm on the local emergency planning committee for Southern Nevada. I'm also on the committee that hands out Homeland Security grants. And so I think my background is good. I've been the executive director of not only state agencies, but nonprofits and volunteer organizations. So I think the leadership component is good. I also think that, again, a lot of agencies out there sometimes shy away from volunteers, and I think I have some expertise there to help them develop their volunteer programs. I mean, if budgets are going to be tight, it would be nice if you could reach out and find some organizations, some trusted organizations that you could bring in and help you. It may be in areas that you can't finance right now because of budget cuts. Like I said, I don't know if I consider myself a sweet C-level executive, but my point is that I've been involved in the community. I've run organizations, I've run businesses, but I'm still actively involved in the volunteer organizations in emergency management. So I think that you can go to people and bring them in, regardless of what level they are at in the business society, to have them come in and help and use those skills. So I think I can help people figure out a way to better utilize those resources.
What's your vision for IAEM?
Well, obviously IAEM is a training organization. We have conferences and lots of workshops and information on how to be a better emergency manager. It's obviously the credentialing arm of the emergency managers, not only in the United States, but in worldwide. And so that's an important program. But again, I think that, we can broaden the not everybody that belongs to IAEM is a certified emergency manager. Again, I think it's a great credential to have, but I think that there are other individuals out there that are in emergency management who may not be members at this point and may not have to have that certification, but they would be a valuable asset. So I think reaching out, broadening the membership, I think the IAEM has done a tremendous job. The conferences and workshops that I've been involved with have been top notch. They brought in great talent. They always do good conferences. This year it's going to be virtual. I think it was going to be in Long Beach, but now it's going to be virtual. So it'll be new, like everything else is in the virtual world right now, but they always do a really top notch job. And again, I just want to continue in that vein of leadership to make sure that emergency managers are supported on the local, state, and federal levels.
So how long have you actually been involved in the IAEM organization?
Well, it's interesting. I joined in 1992, so it was a long time ago. I was the public information officer for the Las Vegas Valley Water District here in town, and most of our emergencies were kind of internal. We would break a water main, we would backhoe would separate a gas line and burn down a condo, or something had to do with call before you dig sort of stuff. So I had joined then, and then my career path kind of veered away. I went into more public relations and marketing. I ran my own company here in Las Vegas for about 20 years, and then back in 2011. I went back to work for the state of Nevada. I had sat on a bunch of boards and commissions over the years, governor-appointed positions, but they had an opening for what's called the Employee Management Relations Board, which is kind of the Nevada equivalent of the National Labor Relations Board. And so I dealt with all of the cities, counties, police, fire, sheriff, emergency management, any sort of local government organization, dealt with them on collective bargaining issues. So I drove around the state meeting with, again, these organizations. And then when I got my master's degree, my MPA, the only thing that sounded interesting was an emphasis in emergency management. So I got that. And then from there, I left that state position to actually work in emergency management on a volunteer basis for a couple of years. I got my assignment through my church, and then I got involved in VOAD, and then reconnected with the IAEM. And again, it was kind of funny when I went back to reconnect, it wouldn't let me open my account. And I wondered why, and it was because I had an account from 1992, so it was kind of blocking me. So like I said, and then so I've kind of come on, like I said, both ways, both professionally, and then this last time I came back through volunteer service. And Todd mentioned, and I'd love to talk about it a little bit later, but the 1 October shooting in Las Vegas, I'd like to talk, if you have some time about that, because again, that was a real obviously a real serious incident, touched my heart a lot, got to know a lot of people, and love a lot of emergency managers and firefighters through that whole situation there. I'm reaching out to the victims and their families. So that's kind of how I came about with the IAEM, kind of full circle over the number of decades.
What do you think we can do to improve IAEM and the outreach?
Well, I think in any organization, really what's good is to kind of ask individuals what they need. People sometimes in organizations, and I'm not singling out the IAEM, but, we kind of think historically or traditionally, we know what people need. And so we offer those types of programs. And it would be nice to reach out to emergency managers. I mean, I was speaking to a friend of mine who is a Henderson firefighter yesterday. and was asking him about, kind of like mental health and, response on what happens when they go through a traumatic event. And, he had some suggestions on what could make that type of program better. So I think reaching out to those who have the boots on the ground, who maybe need, some suggestions on how to be a better emergency manager, how to do planning better. I mean, there are lots of resources through FEMA and other groups, but I think the IAEM, again, does a wonderful job on the credentialing. I think they do a good job of training, but I think if we, reach out to those with boots on the ground and say, what is it that you really need? Because, as you know, we all went to the Executive Academy together at FEMA. People have lots of opinions about government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and it'd be nice to see what strength they have.
So a lot of that, what you just said, comes back to mentoring and having a good mentoring system in place. And Todd and I have had this conversation before. How can we, as emergency management professionals, aid AEM to increase mentoring programs? Because I know right now, and me and you have had this conversation, Brian, there's a disconnect there between those who are really experienced emergency managers and those who come out of the field of maybe being educated and want to be an emergency manager, and the difference that are there. So how do we bridge that gap with IAEM to increase the mentoring that takes place between those who are really experienced and those who are educated?
Again, I think a big component of that is communications. Again, until an emergency manager is kind of thrown into a big emergency, they get a lot of book knowledge and they have some planning experience. But when you're kind of thrust into a big disaster, you learn a lot. I think, like I said, what you and Todd do and what we did at the Executive Academy, getting together, having discussions, offering to mentor people. I mean, part of my campaign has been, look, connect with me on LinkedIn, and here's my phone number and here's my email address. Let's talk. So, keeping that conversation going. Obviously, in your local organizations, your local communities, reach out to those, like you said, who may not have as much experience. And again, I know, Daniel, you and Todd are mentors to a lot of individuals. But like I said, you're absolutely right. We've got to bring up a new generation of emergency managers who have that experience and know that there are people that they can call, like myself and you and Todd, and have their questions answered, and be willing to make a call on their behalf or find some training for them. So again, the mentoring process is extremely important. And maybe there's something we could do on a national level. I always like it when I go to, national conventions, and I think there ought to be a little bit more networking there. I think I saw something where they were going to try some new things on the virtual, and I think that's very important. I love to network. I love when people connect with me on LinkedIn. I love when they ask questions. I like to share documents just for reference. Like I sat on some school reopening committees and some health district committees, and I've been sharing those documents. So I'd love to have those conversations. So you're absolutely right. Mentoring is extremely important.
And you have a pretty, vast background, as far as like what you've done. What would you consider yourself now? I mean, it sounds like you have a good background of both a practitioner and both administrator. What would you consider yourself now when it comes to being an emergency management professional? More on the practitioner side or more towards the administrative side?
Well, as I mentioned and you brought up, I wear a bunch of different hats. As far as the administrator side, as deputy director of the state agency overseeing these charter schools, there's a certain amount of administration that goes on there. But these schools, at least in Nevada, annually have to submit an emergency operations plan. We have drill requirements for drills in schools. And so we wanted to make sure that they had great information. So we put together a charter school safety committee where we normally get 60 or 70 people to attend, or virtually we've done them now. And we bring in people that have, people in local community that deal with mental health, we have a Safe Voice program in schools. We bring in some Harbor, which are basically some wraparound programs for some of our students. And so I kind of consider myself a little bit of both. I've got obviously the administrative background, but especially on the volunteer area where I sit on the local multi-agency coordination center, the local emergency planning committee. I get together with all of the local fire emergency management agencies throughout Southern Nevada. I sat down at the MAC during the New Year's Eve, which was interesting because I usually go to bed now about 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve, but went down there and stayed up till about 2 o'clock this last New Year's Eve. And then, got called in, like I said, after the 1 October shooting to come in and those are 18 to 20 hour days. So again, a little bit of both, practical experience as well as administration. And I think that's kind of a bonus that you get with me is that I'm not just talking from a textbook and I'm not just talking from experience. I kind of have a blend of both.
There's a question from the comment section here, and it's basically about EM directors throughout internationally speaking. And the question was, how do you see your ability to move to ability to forward the efforts? I see what you're saying. So in the idea of international, how do we see the ability to move the IAEM internationally as well?
Well, you probably remember from our executive academy, we had individual Andrew Friend who had done emergency management in the Middle East. Was extremely exciting to hear what he had to say when he gave his presentations. And again, I think when we go over there, if we're ever called upon to go over temporarily to a different country, just be a good ambassador. I mean, I think it's like spreading the good word of anything. Here we are, we have a great organization, but I think, and again, the mentoring process, I have people that connect with me from the UK and different countries in emergency management with the military. So again, I think us being good representatives when we go to other countries, helping them out. But again, it's the International Association of Emergency Managers. And so again, I think broadening our scope and helping people in other countries. And again, there's lots of devastating emergencies and disasters that happen in other countries. And I think as we go over there, again, just continuing to build those relationships, I think is a good way to start.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about your response to the October shooting in Vegas.
Sounds great.
Seconds count during an emergency. That's why at Titan HST, we're always inventing new technology to help people stay safe and help people who can provide help get connected with people who need help. At Titan HST, we've deployed mesh networking, allowing emergency communication even when networks are down, augmented reality, and real-time translation. We believe in the power of people to help each other stay safe and thrive.
Are you looking for that bag to help you keep organized as you travel around, something you can carry with you every day? Well, VanQuest was founded with a simple mission: build the toughest bags and packs for you to carry every day and to help you stay organized and prepared. VanQuest has been making the ultra-durable bags and packs since 2011, and their bags and packs are trusted by the clients such as the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, and U.S. SOCOM. Yes, that is the U.S. Special Operations Command. Their bags and packs offer the best organization for the user-friendly experience, such as the high visibility interior for the users. I'm telling you something, I love that orange inside the bag because I could find the things I need quickly. I love my VanQuest bag. Don't forget, they offer free shipping, 100-day return guarantee, and a lifetime warranty. And if you put in EM Weekly, all caps, all one word, you get 10% off your total purchase. VanQuest.com. Hey, Daniel, you're talking about the fires that are burning up in Northern California right now. And there's a lot of them going on in California. And I know that Nevada's being impacted by the smoke coming from California. We like to share, Brian, when we do things here in California, we'll share with Nevada as well.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We actually had Washoe County schools in Reno opened up on, they were supposed to open up Monday, but they canceled because of the smoke. And I think they canceled today. So we appreciate your sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. Now, here's the question for you, though. If those cell towers go down, do you know that with Titan HST, we actually have mesh networking, and that so your team can still communicate? So just let you know, Brian, You can still use Titan HST to communicate even when the cell towers go down. Dan is cracking up there. All right.
No, that sounds good.
So let's discuss. Okay, so we talked a little bit about your background and whatnot, but I know that this is one of those things that the role of emergency managers in different events. And I myself, you guys know my background, I responded to an active shooter as well. We don't just sit in an office all the time. We have different roles, different aspects of things. How do you think we can actually really utilize emergency managers in events like the shooting that you responded to?
Well, at the time, again, I was a state employee at the time, and once the governor declared a state of emergency, I was a state resource. So I actually went down for 2 weeks. My boss, gladly allowed me to go, and I was a state resource, so I went down. And that's why I say I think there's a lot of resources out there. If they're state employees or maybe local government employees, there's a way to get them involved at little or no cost to other organizations, but they'd be able to step out. Like I was able to step out for 2 weeks as a state employee and to serve in that capacity. So I think there's some things that we could look at to make our organizations more effective without killing the budget.
What was your role at the shooting?
Well, I tell you, it was kind of interesting. That Sunday night, which was October 1st, I was actually conducting kind of a preparedness meeting at a church here in town. We were just talking about emergency plans and 72-hour kits, things like that. So I came home and went to bed about 10 o'clock, and my phone didn't go off. About 5 o'clock the next morning, on Monday morning, I woke up and all the Facebook pages were from my, the posts were from my family back east saying, "Brian, is your family okay? Are you all right?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. Immediately gauged and saw what was going on. So I got up and got showered and decided I would run by the MAC on my way to work to see if they needed anything. On my way there, I got a call from the emergency manager for the city of Las Vegas and Clark County Fire Department and said, "Could you come by the MAC? We need you to oversee spiritual emotional care. We're going to set up a family assistance center." So I drove there, got out, we started doing some briefings. It was kind of interesting, a lot of discussion about the media. We had let the media know that we were going to open up the Family Assistance Center at 1 p.m. that day, so Monday at 1 p.m. So the media, obviously announced that the Family Assistance Center was already open. So we immediately hopped in our vehicles and drove down. We had it at the Las Vegas Convention Center, so we had lots of space. But I got there, and probably within just a few minutes, a mother and father and daughter walked in, and they had lost their daughter the night before. Again, it's public knowledge. Her name's Nisa Tonks, and they shared pictures and photographs. I met with them. And, when I say I was in charge of spiritual emotional care, we held hands, we cried, we listened to what they had to say. It's about them. It was not about us and our experiences. It was about them being able to share. The next individual that came in was a gentleman and his friend who had been at the concert. And again, the night before, his fiance had been killed by gunshot wounds. He held her in his arms. And so I'm listening to these stories. As we sat at the Family Assistance Center, we brought in airlines, hotels, Uber, Lyft, taxi. We eventually brought in the DMV because when they fled the concert scene, they obviously dropped their purses, their hats, everything. And so we were there to help them get whatever services they need. I brought in faith-based groups from all over the valley, and we even had some coming. We had a Jewish rabbi that brought an RV in from California. We had individuals nationwide wanting to come help. So I set up that program. I had a city councilman call me and say, "Hey, Brian, I've got 3 Catholic priests in my office. I don't know what to do with them." And I said, "Well, send them over." So they came in and we sat with them. And like I said, we basically, as the families came in, we were working with the coroner's office the first 3 or 4 days, and the families to get their loved ones identified. And again, offering services mainly for the first 3-4 days. It was completely about the families and bringing the services they needed. After the first day, we had people driving from all over the Western United States, bringing supplies in. We had water and food and blankets and things like that. So I made a decision when the fire department asked me to take over volunteer and donations management, as well as the spiritual emotional care. I made a decision that, we ended up with somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 15 tractor trailer loads of water and Gatorade and sodas and other supplies. I didn't want people to come here and offer a case of water and us tell them we don't need any water, we've got plenty. I wanted them to be able to heal. So I made a decision that when they dropped supplies off, and again, we had hundreds of people driving through. Again, we were in the convention center. We had hundreds of thousands of square foot of space. So they would drive in, we would unload their vehicles, we would sort it out. And we told them that we were going to, use what we could and then share it with our community partners. So at the end of the Family Assistance Center, about 3 weeks later, we filled up Veterans Village, Share Village, Shade Tree Shelter. We basically extended out to all of the nonprofits in town that are our VOAD partners. Water, food. We filled up. We helped to fill up the 3 Square Food Bank. So again, we thought it was a way to help the community heal. And obviously, I was just a small part of that, in the fact that Chief John Steinbeck, who is the fire chief for Clark County, and was the emergency manager at the time and the incident commander. His team is amazing. The city of North Las Vegas, Henderson, Clark County, Boulder City, Mesquite, all the municipalities came in from the various agencies, social service agencies came in, and we really worked well together, both the government agencies and nonprofits, on serving individuals and getting them what they need. I still have contact with family members of those who were injured during the shooting. Contact them once in a while, make sure, that again, no one ever gets over an event like that, but to make sure that they're progressing. Some of them have healed, and obviously some of them have passed away, but those are kind of the ties that bind. And really, I kind of an interesting story, maybe like a year later, I saw one of the firefighters that I had worked very closely with at the Family Assistance Center, a big hulking guy, and I saw him at the local grocery store. I was running in from work to get something to eat, and I saw him, and you normally reach your hand out for a handshake, and he just grabbed me and gave me a big hug, because those are the kind of incidents that really bring you together. And the community was so wonderful. The whole world, the whole United States. Again, we just got so much assistance, but I was just basically there to organize and bring people in. And I did serve as a bishop in my church for 5 years, so I have experience in counseling and stress management issues, things like that. So I was able to do that. But and that was the most, the other stuff is more administrative, like you were talking about, Daniel, earlier. But to really sit down with these families and let them share their thoughts about their loved ones. There's nothing quite like that. And it certainly has, changed my mind when it comes to, incidents.
That Family Assistance Center, that continued on for quite a while, right?
Well, we were at the original Family Assistance Center at the convention center for 3 weeks. And then we went out, the county went out and found a place. We were checking with realtors, and we found a location. The county came together. We got, furniture. They got it painted. We had some volunteers that went over and set up I think they bought some of the furniture at IKEA, so it had to be assembled. And so we got some volunteers to go over. But yes, and that's kind of the sad thing I would bring up, is that the Family Assistance Center has done a wonderful job. They reached out to those, but I had 2 individuals who were at the shooting, 2 friends of mine locally here, and they both just kind of refused to register for benefits. That's for somebody else. I don't need that. And I begged them and begged them and begged them up till the day of the deadline. And one of them seems to be fine, and the other one, unfortunately, was involved in I don't really know how to put this, but as I begged him to get counseling and help, he just didn't do it. And in April, the police were called to his home for a domestic disturbance, and he was drunk and pulled a weapon and lost his life. And my point is, I just begged and begged this individual to register for benefits. You may need them in the future. So, the mental health component of any emergency is, obviously the victims and their families, but, I was a second tier responder. You have first tier responders. And so there needs to be debriefing. There needs to be discussion. People need to talk out these things. And, self-care is important. I know that most people in law enforcement, fire, emergency management, we're tough people. We don't need that sort of thing, but we really do. And I think we're getting better in the emergency management world about saying, do you need any help? Are you doing okay? Can we talk? So I think we're getting better about that.
Hey, Brian, so how can somebody find you and get a hold of you and if they want to learn more about your running for IAEM second vice president?
Well, certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a real easy way. My email address is jbrianscroggins@gmail.com. That's fairly easy to, but like I said, love to connect with you, love to learn more about what everyone else is going through and share my experiences. And that's kind of how we grow.
Outstanding. Hey, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here on the show today. Brian, thank you for your time. Thank you for the wonderful story you told about your response to the shooting. Very emotional, and thank you for your services as well on that. That was some great work there, what you did for the community. Daniel, always thank you for your time. Brian, producer Brian, thank you for your time as well. And hey, listen, everybody, next Thursday on the 27th, Sitch Radio and EM Weekly is having a webinar on how to reopen after this COVID. And Brian, you're eligible, Brian Scroggins, not Brian from Sitch Radio, to win a free iPad just for signing up. Put your name inside there. Daniel, sorry, you're not eligible for that. But everybody, will see you next week here on EM Weekly. Remember, first of all, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, go to your favorite podcast player, download us over there. And everybody, during this heat that's happening across the country and everything else, stay safe and stay hydrated.